Hello everyone, this is Wasim from Edureka and I welcome you all to this session in which I'm going to discuss how can we code in Python. So let's take a look at the agenda for this session. First of all, I'm going to explain the installation and setup, and then we'll talk about Python interactive shell. After that, we will discuss how IDEs are used for Python, and finally I will explain how you can write your first Python code. So moving on, let's take a look at the first topic of our session, guys, which is installation and setup. So as a beginner, the very first thing that you have to do while starting with Python programming language, apart from reading about what exactly is Python, moving past that phase, you're going to have to install and set up Python on your system, guys. Basic introduction would be Python is an interpreted language. It is open source. It has a lot of libraries. It is easy to learn and the readability is pretty great. The syntax is easy. It's like reading or writing a code in simple English language. But installation and setup is still the orthodox one. You have to download a file from the official documentation, of course, and after that you'll have to install it using the setup. It actually requires a few things that you must be aware of, like how you can set a path manually, or you get that option to set the path in the setup as well. First thing that you have to do as a beginner, as anyone who has professional knowledge about programming as well, you have to know what kind of system you are using, what is the operating system you are using. It could be a Windows operating system, it could be a Mac OS or a Linux as well. So you have to know which version you have to download, and then after that you'll have to know what kind of Python version you are going to use. Is it going to be Python 2, Python 3? And if you're using Python 3, what kind of version you are looking for, 3.5, 3.6, 7, 8, or Python 9 as well, because the latest version that has been released in the market is Python 3.9. So we're going to have to consider the versions that we're going to use for our particular, the operating system that we are using. To start with Python programming, you'll have to go to the python.org, where you will have a download section. They'll be given a lot of packages or releases that you can, begin with. So since I'm using a Windows operating system, I'll be looking at the Python releases for Windows. If you have Mac OS, you can look for the Mac OS, and then subsequently you can look for Linux as well, or any other operating system that you're using. Alright, so latest Python 3 release is Python 3.9.0 and latest Python 2 release is Python 2.7.18. So whichever Python release that you want, you can download it from here. And after that, you're going to have to take a look at all the downloadable files. So there is an embeddable zip file executable installer is there, which is for the 64-bit web-based installer is there, 64-bit executable installer is there. So you're going to have to download this one if you want to install Python on your system. Since I've already done that, I'm not going to run the setup again, but I'll show you how it looks like. Alright guys, so this is what the setup looks like. Since I've already installed it, I'm using 3.7 and this is the version for 3.8.6. So I'm not going to do it. And while you are installing or this setup opens up, there is a checkbox here which says add Python 3.8 to path. So always, remember to check this. If you don't do that, you're going to have to set the path manually. Don't worry guys, even if you actually missed this particular function over here, because we already have a tutorial on how we can set path manually on Python. Yes, if you have missed out that part, you can check it out on our YouTube channel and you'll be good to go, guys. So right now I've told you about all the releases, the versions that you can download from. After the setup is done and you have installed Python, what you will have to do is you're going to have to open command prompt and just type Python. Now, if everything went perfectly well and your path is also set perfectly, if you run this command on your command prompt, you will get somewhat like this. The output would look somewhat like this, which says Python 3.7.8, which is the version of the Python version that is installed on this system. Yes, and we have actually entered the Python interactive shell. So we're going to talk about this in a while. But before this, okay. So now I want to stress upon this fact. If you have not set the path properly, you're going to have to do it manually. Otherwise, you will face a lot of errors. So make sure you check that particular function that I told you in the setup. Or if you have to, if you face any errors later on and if you have to set the path manually, you can go on and check out that tutorial that I told you about, how to set path manually on our YouTube channel. So I'll just minimize this for now. Now, as you install Python, there is one thing that comes with it, which is idle. It's basically an IDE for Python that it comes with, the installation. So we'll be talking about that as well. And there are several other IDs, like JetBrains has come up with PyCharm. Then you can use VS Code Editor. There is Sublime Text, Jupyter, which is from Anaconda. So there are a lot of options that you can explore, but initially as a beginner, I would suggest you to start with idle. And once you get the hang of it, you can start out with other IDs as well. So Python is very easy to learn, that you guys already know. It is one of the reasons because it has a very good documentation which comes with a beginner guide, and there is a developer's guide as well. But since you are starting out with Python, you're going to have to take a look at some examples, the basic concepts like how variables works in Python, what are the data structures like in Python, how the syntax is for each and every module that you're going to use, or how you declare classes, how the functions work, the function calls and everything. And since everything is treated as an object in Python, what exactly is a class? Since class is also an object, it is going to be an instance of a bigger class as well. So that there comes the meta class, and there are a lot of concepts that you're going to be learning about when starting with Python. And I would suggest you to follow a structured learning path where you learn about the pure Python concepts, and only after that you move on to the fancy stuff where you can just import a library for data analysis or for data science concepts like visualization, or move on to advanced concepts like machine learning or deep learning. So moving back to our topic, we are going to talk about the interactive shell, guys. So as soon as I write Python over here, I'm in the shell. And since Python is an interpreted language, Python shell plays a very important part here, since it can actually execute one line at a time. So the very first thing that you will learn in Python as a beginner is, of course, hello world, because this is like a universal remedy for learning a programming language. If you don't know how to print hello world, you have missed out on a very major part of programming language. Now if I execute this command, so I am getting the string as hello world. So since we have not discussed data types yet, and I'm not really going to go deeper into this, so in this part of the session I'm just telling about the Python interactive session. I can write my code here. Now I've exited the Python shell. So we'll just close the command prompt for now. So we know that we have already installed Python on our system, and we have also seen how a Python interactive shell works. We can execute commands one by one over there, and it's helpful when we are just executing a few commands. But other than that, we are going to use a editor, text editor, where we can actually write the code. So that's going to be helpful. So for that, for writing the full Python script, we will discuss the Python IDE. So what exactly is IDE, guys? All right, so guys, when it comes to programming, an IDE is a no-brainer. It's basically an environment that is provided to us for building applications. After installing Python from python.org, it comes with an integrated development environment called idle. So we have opened idle, guys. So if you open idle, it will open the Python shell first of all, like we have seen in the command prompt as well. So let's write a few commands. Hello world, let's say again. So we're getting the value hello world. Now we are going to stick to very basic data structures to make you understand how you can write your first program, guys. Now I discussed like this is going to execute one line at a time. So we're going to need something, like an editor, a text editor, which will help us write different Python scripts. So for that purpose, we can make a new file. So this is my new file where I can write my Python script. The thing with idle is it's not as great as PyCharm, but since you are beginning to learn Python, it will help you understand how indents work in Python, the spacing and everything. If you make a single mistake, you'll have to identify it and correct it with a proper syntax. So that helps a lot, guys. Before moving on, let me just discuss how we should approach writing Python code, guys. Now, whenever you're writing a Python code, there has to be a structure into how you're going to approach it. So the very first thing that you would want to do is identify the problem statement first of all, because at the end of the day, the program or the script or code that you're writing is going to execute and perform a task. So you have to understand what kind of problem statement you have been given. So let's say I want you to just put 10 numbers inside a data structure. So I want you to do that, and that is your task. So with Python, what you have to do is identify how you're going to approach it. So when I say you have to put 10 numbers inside a data structure, first you have to understand what kind of data structure you're going to use and how you're going to put those 10 numbers. Which format will you use? Will it be an integer format, or will you store them in a float format or in strings format? So these are the things how you should approach it. And this is a very simple example. Let's say a more complex example would be, I want you to calculate the factorial of a number. Now there's one thing you have to understand here. To calculate the factorial of a number, you're going to have to keep multiplying the number until your result is reached. So how are you going to do that when you write a single piece of code? So for that, you're going to have to explore another concept, which is iteration. Keep executing the same piece of code again and again until certain point is reached in your program. So this is the approach you should follow, and this is for a very basic thing. Like I'm explaining how you can just get a list of numbers and how you can calculate the factorial of a number. These kind of problems or writing code in such format will help you build logic around Python. And whenever anybody asks you to execute any piece of code or write any code for any specific task, you'll be able to do it very efficiently and without the help of anybody else. So now we move on to our text editor. Now, since we haven't discussed any data types or how it's done, I'm just going to, just take one variable, let's say A, and I'm going to store a few values here. This is my data structure, which is list. Right now it's an empty list because I do not have given or assigned any values here. So what I can do here, instead of just using an empty list, is use a list constructor. You'll be able to learn this better when you have already, been through data structures or data types in Python. And we have a tutorial for data types as well. I mean, list, tuple, dictionary, and set are, the basic data types in Python. There are advanced data structures as well that we have in collections module. So you'll be able to learn them better when you move on from one step from the beginner's level. This is a list constructor. It's going to give me an empty list right now, but what I will do is I will get another data type, which is the range data type. It basically gives me numbers from whatever range I specify. So I'm going to put the range as 0 to 11 because we want 10 numbers in our list, and I will give the step as 1. This is a very basic example, guys, and I'm going to print A over here. So this is my Python script to perform a specific task that I was talking about, guys. Right, so I'll just run this, save it. All right, let's just save it as test. And now I have completed the task with my Python script. So I've got 10 numbers inside a data type. So that is one task that we were given. Okay, so let's just perform another task, guys. So let's say the next task is I have a number and I have to, decide if it's less than 10, if it's greater than 10, or if it is equal to 10. So right now, how I would approach this particular problem is, I have a number that a user is giving, right? Now the program will decide if it is less than 10, greater than 10, or equal to 10. So this is my problem, guys. We can add something else to it, but it's going to follow a very simple approach. So let's say I have a number and this is an input. Okay, enter a number. We're going to be transparent here, so no need to be discreet about this. We're just checking the flow of the program. So now I have a condition. So I'm going to use the if, else, if, and else. So if number is equal to 10, we will print equal, yes. Else if number is greater than 10, we will print greater. And if else number is less than 10, we are going to print less than. And we will give default else statement as, let's say, unknown value. So right now I do not know how this program actually works, so I'm just going to run it and see. So I have 3 conditions, right? So first of all, let me just write 10. So if it's equal to 10, it's giving me the answer as equal. Now let's run it again. Now if I provide a number greater than 10, it should give me the value as greater. All right, now I'm going to run this again. So if the value is equal to, let's say, 5, it's giving me the answer as less than. So our program here right now is perfectly fine. So if I give it some value, right, it's giving me an error which says invalid literal for int with base 10, right? Because we cannot just specify any number over here. So what I have to do over here is, let's just say we give it a value as a string. Now we have not given any condition for a string. So what will happen is it will give us the value as unknown value. It's actually a type error, guys, because >= is not supported between instances of string and int. All right. How we get the type errors and the different data types is something that you will understand. So right now I just wanted to make it a little complex, so that's why I was using different data types just to see how a different value would work here. So yes, guys, we have successfully created a program to check if a number is greater, lesser, or equal to 10. So this is how you create programs, guys, and this is your first program that you have created. And with this, we have come to the end of the session, guys. And if you have any questions, you can mention them in the comment section below. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to Edureka for more exciting tutorials and press that bell icon to get the latest updates on Edureka. If you're looking for a certification program, we have given a certification link in the description box below. Go and check it out, guys. Also tell us in the comment section, guys, what kind of problems did you face while starting out with Python programming language, and how did you come up with solutions? Also, if you're working on a new project, or if you want to work on a new project, tell us in the comment section, guys, how we can help you begin with that, or if we can make a tutorial for it as well. All right, so I'll take a leave. Thank you and have a nice day.